I never thought I'd be sitting in my childhood living room, facing an intervention about how I'm supposedly corrupting my sister's children. Yet here I am, watching my perfect sister Sabrina's mascara run down her face as she lists my countless failures as an aunt. My name is Ellie, and at 27, I'm apparently the black sheep who's destroying our family's reputation. The funny thing is, just yesterday, I was helping my niece Caitlin with her science project, while Sabrina was running errands. She bought them violent video games, Sabrina says, her voice cracking. And she tells them it's okay to talk back to adults. She's undermining everything we're teaching them. Mom wrings her hands in her lap, looking between us like she's watching a tennis match. Dad just sits there, stone-faced, probably wishing he was anywhere else. The afternoon sun streaming through the bay windows feels too bright, too exposing. That's not true, I say, trying to keep my voice steady. The game was rated E for everyone, Sabrina. It's literally about building cities. Don't twist this around. Sabrina stands up, pointing her finger at me. Last week, Roman told his teacher that some rules are meant to be questioned. Where do you think he got that from? I can't help but laugh, which only makes things worse. Heaven forbid a child learns critical thinking. See? Sabrina turns to our parents. This is exactly what I'm talking about. She thinks everything's a joke. Dad finally speaks up. Ellie, maybe you could be more mindful of Sabrina's parenting choices. Mindful? I stand up too, my hands shaking. What about being mindful of the fact that I'm the one who shows up to their school events when Sabrina's too busy, or that I'm the one they call when they're upset because they know I'll actually listen? That's enough. Mom's voice cuts through the tension. Both of you, please sit down. We do, but Sabrina's not done. She pulls out her phone, scrolling frantically. Look at this text Caitlin sent me last week. She said, and I quote, Aunt Ellie says it's okay to disagree with people sometimes, even parents. Do you see what she's doing? I can't believe this, I mutter, fighting back tears. You're actually turning basic life lessons into something sinister. We think, Dad says carefully, that maybe you should take a step back from spending so much time with the kids, just until things settle down. The words hit me like a physical blow. I look at Mom, hoping for support, but she's staring at the floor. The family photos on the wall behind them seem to mock me. All those forced smiles, perfectly arranged poses, hiding who knows what else. Fine, I say, standing up again. You want me to step back? I will. But don't come crying to me the next time you need someone to pick them up from school or watch them on short notice. Ellie, please. Mom reaches for my hand, but I pull away. No, this is perfect. I grab my purse from the couch. Sabrina finally got what she wanted. Total control. I hope you're happy. As I head for the door, Sabrina calls out, This is exactly why we're worried about your influence. You're so dramatic about everything. I turn back one last time, taking in the scene. My sister's tear-stained face, my father's disappointment, my mother's confusion. You know what, Sabrina? For someone so concerned about bad influences, maybe you should look in the mirror sometime. The door slams behind me with a satisfying bang. In my car, I finally let the tears fall, but they're not sad tears. They're angry ones. Because I've seen things, noticed things about Sabrina that nobody else seems to see. The way she sometimes shows up late to family dinners with glassy eyes. The way she gets extra touchy at parties. The way her kids look at her sometimes with that mixture of love and worry that no child should have to feel. My phone buzzes, a text from Caitlin. Are you okay, Aunt Ellie? Mom seems really mad. I wipe my eyes, typing back. I'm fine, sweetie. Just grown-up stuff. Love you. Another buzz. Love you too. Roman says hi. That does it. I start the car, my hands steady now, my mind clear. If Sabrina wants to play this game, fine. But two can play at exposure. It's time someone pulled back the curtain on my sister's perfect life and showed everyone what's really going on behind it. Because sometimes the worst influences aren't the ones who teach kids to question authority. They're the ones who pretend to be perfect while their lives crumble behind closed doors. 2 weeks after the intervention, I'm sitting at my best friend Danielle's kitchen counter, scrolling through old photos on my phone. There's one from last Christmas. Sabrina holding a wine glass, her smile a bit too wide, her eyes a bit too bright. I should have noticed it sooner. You're obsessing, Danielle says, sliding a coffee mug toward me. Maybe you should let it go. Let it go? I show her the photo. Look at her face. This was right before she knocked over the Christmas tree trying to dance with it. We all get drunk at Christmas sometimes, Danielle shrugs, but I can tell she's starting to see it too. My phone buzzes. A text from Mom. Family dinner tonight. Please come. Your father misses you. Great, I mutter. Another chance for Sabrina to play victim. Or, Danielle says, a chance to observe. You said you wanted proof? Watch her tonight. She's right. I text back. Okay, what time? 6 hours later, I'm walking into my parents' house, armed with a bottle of sparkling cider. The first thing I notice is Sabrina's laugh, too loud coming from the kitchen. I find her there, leaning against the counter, wine glass already in hand. Oh, look who decided to grace us with her presence, Sabrina announces, her words slightly slurred. Mom turns from the stove, relief evident on her face. Ellie, honey, can you help set the table? As I grab plates from the cabinet, Caitlin runs in and hugs me tight. Aunt Ellie, I got an A on my science project. That's amazing, kiddo, I hug her back, catching Sabrina's scowl over her head. Mom helped too, Caitlin adds quickly, glancing at Sabrina. Did I? Sabrina frowns, then laughs. Oh, right, I signed the permission slip. During dinner, I watch Sabrina refill her glass 3 times. Dad talks about work, Mom asks about the kids' school, and everyone pretends not to notice when Sabrina knocks over the salt shaker reaching for the wine bottle. Oops, she giggles. I'm such a klutz today. Roman, picking at his food, catches my eye. I know that look. It's the same one I used to have when Dad would come home late smelling like beer, before he quit drinking 15 years ago. After dinner, I offer to help clean up. As I'm loading the dishwasher, I hear a thud upstairs, followed by Sabrina's voice. I'm fine, just tripped. I'll check on her, I tell Mom, who's looking worried. Upstairs, I find Sabrina in her old bedroom, rummaging under the bed. Lost my phone, she mumbles. But what catches my eye isn't her phone. It's the empty wine bottle that's rolled partially out from under the bed skirt. When Sabrina stands up, phone in hand, triumphant, I wait until she wobbles back downstairs before investigating further. Kneeling down, I lift the bed skirt. My heart stops. There's not just one bottle. There's a whole collection, hidden in a neat row. Some are empty, some are full, all carefully arranged where no one would think to look. Aunt Ellie? Roman's voice makes me jump. He's standing in the doorway, looking smaller than his 8 years. Are you looking for Mom's special juice? I stand up quickly. Roman, honey, what do you mean? He shifts uncomfortably. Mom says it's her special juice that helps her deal with stress. She keeps it up here when we stay over at Grandma's. My hands are shaking as I pull out my phone and take a quick photo of the bottles. Roman, does your mom drink this special juice a lot? He nods slowly. Sometimes she falls asleep on the couch after. Dad just says she's tired from working hard. Footsteps on the stairs send Roman scurrying away. Sabrina appears, steadying herself against the doorframe. What are you doing in here? Looking for my old yearbook, I lie smoothly. Mom mentioned wanting to see it. Sabrina narrows her eyes. Always snooping around, aren't you? That's your problem, Ellie. You can't mind your own business. As I brush past her, she grabs my arm. Her grip is tight, desperate. What did you see? I meet her gaze steadily. Nothing you're ready to admit to yet. Downstairs, I hug my parents goodbye, kiss the kids, and walk to my car with purpose. In the driver's seat, I look at the photo I took, then send it to Danielle with a message. Found what I was looking for. Time to plan our next move. Because this isn't about revenge anymore. This is about 2 kids who deserve better than watching their mother disappear into a bottle, one special juice at a time. The memory hits me like a freight train as I'm sorting through the photos on my phone. It was 3 months ago before the intervention, when Sabrina called me at 2 a.m. Can you come get me? Her words were slurred, barely comprehensible. I can't drive. I found her sitting on the curb outside a bar, mascara streaked down her face. The kids were at a sleepover, and Elias was away on business. "Don't tell anyone," she had begged as I helped her into my car. "It's just, being perfect is so hard sometimes." Now, sitting in Danielle's living room, I show her the video I secretly took that night. Sabrina stumbling up her driveway, nearly falling into her rose bushes. "Jesus," Danielle whispers. "And she had the nerve to call you a bad influence?" My phone rings. It's Caitlin. "Aunt Ellie, can you pick me up from soccer practice?" Mom was supposed to, but she's not answering her phone. 20 minutes later, I pull up to the soccer field. Caitlin's coach is waiting with her, looking concerned. "This is the third time this month," she tells me quietly, while Caitlin gets her gear. "Is everything okay at home?" "Family stuff," I say vaguely. "Thanks for staying with her." In the car, Caitlin is unusually quiet. "Mom forgot again, didn't she?" "She might have been busy. Stop making excuses for her." Caitlin's outburst startles me. "I'm not stupid. I know why she forgets things. I know why she sleeps all day sometimes." We pull into their driveway. Sabrina's car is there, but the house is dark. I use my emergency key to let us in. We find Sabrina passed out on the couch, an empty wine bottle on the coffee table. Caitlin immediately heads upstairs, her shoulders tight with anger. "Mom?" I shake Sabrina gently. "Wake up, you forgot Caitlin." She stirs, blinking confused eyes. "What? What time is it?" "Almost 6. You were supposed to pick her up from soccer." Oh God. She sits up too quickly, swaying. Is she mad? "What do you think?" I start collecting empty glasses from around the room. "This has to stop, Sabrina." "Don't." Her voice turns hard. "Don't you dare judge me. You have no idea what it's like." What's like? Having everyone think you're perfect? Having mom and dad's constant approval? Having responsibilities. She stands up, unsteady. Having a family depending on you. Having to be everything to everyone all the time. So this is your solution? I hold up an empty wine bottle. Hiding bottles under your bed? Passing out while your kids need you? "Get out." She grabs the bottle from my hand. "Get out of my house." "Fine." I head for the stairs. But first I'm checking on Caitlin. She's my daughter. Then start acting like her mother. I find Caitlin in her room, headphones on, homework spread across her bed. When she sees me, she pulls the headphones off. "I'm okay," she says before I can speak. "I'm used to it." Those 4 words break my heart. "You shouldn't have to be used to it, honey." She shrugs, but her lower lip trembles. "Dad's coming home tomorrow. He'll fix it. He always does." But we both know he doesn't. He just covers it up, makes excuses, keeps the facade going. Downstairs, Sabrina's throwing up in the bathroom. I stand in the doorway, remembering all the times I've held her hair back, cleaned her up, kept her secrets. "I'm telling Mom and Dad," I say quietly. "This has gone too far." She looks up at me, mascara running again, just like that night outside the bar. "Please don't. I'll do better, I promise." "You've been promising that for months." I pull out my phone, showing her the photo of the bottles under the bed. "Your kids deserve better than this." "You bitch," she snarls, lunging for my phone. "You've been gathering evidence, planning to destroy me?" I step back, keeping the phone out of reach. "No, Sabrina, you're destroying yourself. I'm just done watching it happen." As I leave, I hear her crying, but I don't turn back. In my car, I send 2 texts. One to Mom. "We need to talk about Sabrina. Tomorrow. It's important." The second to Elias. "Your wife needs help. Your kids need you. Come home early if you can." This isn't revenge anymore. This is an intervention. A real one this time. Because sometimes loving someone means being willing to be the bad guy. Means being willing to break things apart so they can be put back together properly. And I'm ready to be the bad guy if that's what it takes to save my sister from herself. Mom agrees to meet me at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory. She's already there when I arrive, stirring her tea with shaking hands. "What's so urgent?" she asks as I sit down. "Your texts had me worried all night." I pull out my phone, sliding it across the table. The gallery is open to the photos of Sabrina's hidden bottles. Mom's hand flies to her mouth. There's more, I say, swiping through the images. This is from Christmas. This is last month at Roman's baseball game. This is from yesterday. No, Mom shakes her head. No, she's just stressed. Everyone has wine sometimes. Mom, I reach for her hand. She passed out and forgot to pick up Caitlin yesterday. Her coach said it's the third time this month. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because Sabrina's spent years convincing everyone she's perfect. And you and Dad, you wanted to believe it. Mom's phone buzzes. It's Sabrina. She declines the call. What do? We have a real intervention, not like the fake one she staged about me, one with professionals. Your father won't like this getting out. Better out than dead. My voice rises, drawing looks from nearby tables. I lower it. Sorry, but Mom, this isn't about reputation anymore. This is about Caitlin and Roman. My phone rings. Elias. I step outside to take it. I got your message, he says. I'm at home now. Found more bottles in the garage, in her closet, even in her car. How is she? Angry, defensive, says you're trying to ruin her life. He pauses. The kids told me everything, Ellie. I've been so blind. We all were. Well, except the kids. I called a treatment center, he says. They have an opening next week, but we need to convince her to go. Back inside, I relay this to Mom. She's crying silently, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. Tomorrow, she says finally. We'll do it tomorrow. I'll tell your father tonight. That evening, Danielle comes over with pizza and wine, then laughs at the irony of bringing wine. You're doing the right thing, she says as I pace my living room, even if it feels wrong. I know, but my phone buzzes with a text from Sabrina. I hate you. You're trying to take everything from me. My kids, my husband, our parents. You've always been jealous. Then another. Please don't do this. I'll stop, I promise. Just give me one more chance. And another. If you go through with this, I'll tell them everything about you. About that night in college. About the money you borrowed. Everything. She's spiraling, Danielle says, reading over my shoulder. This is exactly why you need to do this. I text Elias. How are the kids? At my parents' house. Sabrina's been drinking since I got home. Says she needs it to deal with your betrayal. My hands shake as I type a response to Sabrina. I love you. That's why I'm doing this. You can hate me all you want, but I won't watch you destroy yourself anymore. She replies with a single word. Traitor. Mom calls around midnight. Your father's on board. He found her old diaries. She's been struggling with this for years, hiding it from everyone. Tomorrow at 2, I say. The treatment center is sending someone. Have her meet us at your house. Ellie? Mom's voice breaks. What if she never forgives us? What if we never forgive ourselves if something happens to her or the kids? After hanging up, I sit in my dark apartment, looking at old photos of Sabrina and me as kids. Before the perfect marriage, the perfect kids, the perfect life became her prison. Before she started drowning her imperfections in wine, my phone lights up with one last text from her. Remember when you were little and had nightmares? You'd always come to my room. Said I made you feel safe. What happened to us, Elle? I type back through tears. I'm still here, Sab. Still trying to keep you safe, even if you can't see it right now. No response. Tomorrow will either save my sister or destroy our relationship forever. But as I get ready for bed, I realize something. Sometimes love looks like betrayal. Sometimes it looks like showing up with evidence and ultimatums. Sometimes it looks like being willing to be hated if it means the person you love might live. Because tomorrow isn't about revenge anymore. It's not even about exposing the truth. It's about saving my sister from the perfect lie she's trapped herself in, one hidden bottle at a time. The intervention specialist, Sarah, arrives first. She's younger than I expected, with kind eyes and a calm presence that somehow makes this feel less terrifying. Remember, she says, arranging chairs in my parents' living room, stay focused on facts and feelings. No accusations. Dad paces by the window. She's late. She'll come, Elias says, checking his phone. She thinks this is a family meeting to discuss Ellie's issues. The irony isn't lost on anyone. When Sabrina finally arrives, she's wearing oversized sunglasses and carrying her designer purse like a shield. She freezes in the doorway when she sees Sarah. What is this? Her voice is razor sharp. Who is she? Please sit down, Sabrina, Mom says softly. No, Sabrina backs up. No, no, no. This is not happening. Mrs. Quinn, Sarah steps forward. I'm here to help facilitate a conversation your family needs to have. A conversation? Sabrina laughs high and brittle. You mean an ambush, orchestrated by my dear sister, no doubt. She rips off her sunglasses, revealing bloodshot eyes. Well, start the show. Tell me how I'm ruining everyone's lives. Honey, Dad moves toward her. We're worried about you. Worried? She spins toward me. Or just looking for revenge? Couldn't stand that Mom and Dad liked me better, could you, Ellie? This isn't about me, I say quietly, pulling out my phone. It's about this. I play the video from Christmas, then the one from Roman's baseball game. Photos of hidden bottles, text messages from Caitlin begging me to pick her up from various activities. Turn it off, Sabrina whispers. Your children are scared, Elias says. They're covering for you, making excuses, taking care of you when it should be the other way around. You too? Sabrina's voice breaks. You're all against me? We're for you, Sarah interjects. Everyone in this room loves you and wants to help. Help? Sabrina grabs her purse, dumping the contents onto the coffee table. A flask clatters out among the lipsticks and keys. You want to help? Here's my secret shame. Happy now? Sabrina, Mom starts crying. Why didn't you tell us you were struggling? Struggling? Another harsh laugh. I'm not struggling. I'm surviving. Do you know how hard it is being the perfect daughter? The perfect wife? The perfect mother? No one asked you to be perfect, I say. Everyone asked. Every single day. She's shouting now. Look at Sabrina, so put together. Look at Sabrina, such a great mom. Look at Sabrina, never a hair out of place. While you, she jabs a finger at me, got to be the mess, the free spirit, the one with no expectations. I have a place reserved at Riverside Treatment Center, Elias says quietly. They can take you today. The room goes silent. Sabrina sways slightly, reaching for the wall. Treatment, she whispers. Like some common drunk? Like someone who needs help, Sarah corrects gently. Like someone whose family loves her enough to risk her anger to save her life. I don't. Sabrina slides down the wall to the floor. I can't. I kneel beside her, remembering all the times she comforted me when we were kids. Remember when I broke Mom's favorite vase? You helped me clean it up, told me everything would be okay. Let us help you clean this up, Sab. She looks at me, really looks at me, for the first time in years. I'm so tired, Elle. So tired of pretending. Then stop pretending. I take her hand. Be real. Be messy. Be human. The kids? She looks at Elias. They want their mom back. The real one. Not the perfect one. Sarah hands Sabrina a tissue. There's a car waiting outside. We can go right now. No cameras, no drama, just help. Sabrina squeezes my hand so hard it hurts. Will you come with me? Just for the intake? Of course. She lets us help her up. Mom hugs her, Dad kisses her forehead, and Elias promises to bring the kids to visit once she's settled. At the door, she turns back. I'm sorry. For the intervention about you. For everything. I know, I say. Me too. In the car, she leans against my shoulder like she used to when we were small. I'm scared, Elle. Good, I tell her. That means you're finally being real. As we drive toward the treatment center, I realize something. This moment, my sister finally dropping her perfect mask, finally reaching for help. This is worth more than any revenge could ever be. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes it's helping the person who hurt you find their way back to themselves. The first week after Sabrina enters treatment is chaos. I'm sitting in her kitchen, helping Caitlin with homework while Roman plays video games nearby, when Elias gets the first call. She wants to leave, he says, pacing. Says we're all overreacting. Can she? I ask, covering Caitlin's math worksheet with my hand. Not if she wants to keep custody of the kids. His voice breaks. I had to play that card, Ellie. I had to. After he heads upstairs, Caitlin looks up at me. Is Mom mad at us? No, honey. She's mad at herself, and that's making her mad at everyone else. Dad said she's sick, Roman calls from the couch. But not like flu sick. That's right. I move to sit between them. Your mom has something called addiction. It makes people think they need something even when it's hurting them. Like how I think I need chocolate even when it gives me a stomachache, Caitlin asks. Kind of, but much stronger and more serious. My phone buzzes. Mom calling. The neighbors are asking questions, she says without greeting. What do we tell people? The truth. She's getting help for a health issue. Anyone who gossips can deal with me. Later that week, I visit Sabrina. The treatment center is nicer than I expected, more like a retreat center than a hospital. She's wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater, no makeup. She looks younger somehow. They took my phone, she says immediately. I can't even check on my kids. They're fine. Caitlin got an A on her history test. Roman joined soccer. She starts crying. I'm missing everything. You were missing everything before, Sab. You just didn't realize it because you were drunk. Harsh. True, though. She picks at her sleeve. I found out 3 other moms from the PTA have been here. Can you believe it? All of us, pretending to be perfect, all of us drowning. How are the meetings? Horrible, wonderful, I don't know. She looks out the window. Yesterday I told them about Christmas, about how I wanted to be the perfect host so badly that I drank a whole bottle before dinner even started. I remember. No, you don't. Not all of it. She turns back to me. After everyone left, I drove to the liquor store, with the kids in the car. I could have killed them, Ellie. The silence stretches between us. That's why I can't leave, she whispers, even though I want to, even though everything in me is screaming for a drink, because when they told me that story in group therapy, I didn't even remember it. What else don't I remember? On my way out, her counselor stops me. She's doing well, but the real test will be going home. The perfect house, the perfect neighborhood, all the perfect triggers. What can we do? Be patient, be honest, and maybe... She hesitates. Maybe let the perfect facade crack a little. Show her it's okay to be human. That night, I have dinner with Mom and Dad. They've been cleaning out the house, finding bottles in places we never thought to look. 23 empty wine bottles in the guest room closet, Dad says, pushing his food around. How did we not see it? Because she didn't want us to, Mom answers. Because we didn't want to. I found her diary from high school, I tell them. She wrote about feeling like she was drowning in expectations, about how being the good daughter was killing her. Dad puts down his fork. We did this to her, didn't we? No, I say firmly. We all played a part, but Sabrina made her choices. Now she's making a better one. My phone lights up with a message from Elias. Kids want to know if they can visit Mom this weekend. Another text follows. They made cards in art therapy. Roman says, "Get better, Mom. We don't need you to be perfect." I show the text to my parents. Mom starts crying again, but this time they're different tears. Hope tears, maybe. We should all go, Dad says suddenly. Show her we're not ashamed. Show her we're proud of her for getting help. Yeah, I smile. And maybe we can all stop pretending while we're at it. Because that's the real disease, isn't it? Not just the alcohol, but the perfectionism that drove her to it. The masks we all wear, the roles we all play, until we forget who we really are underneath. Maybe that's why this happened. Not just to save Sabrina, but to save all of us from the perfect lies we've been living. 30 days into treatment, we're all sitting in a family therapy session. Sabrina looks healthier, clearer, though her hands still shake sometimes when she talks about difficult things. I want to address the intervention, the therapist, Dr. Marcus, says. The one Sabrina staged about Ellie. Sabrina flinches. Do we have to? Yes. Dr. Marcus leans forward. Because it shows a pattern of projection that we need to discuss. I was trying to control everything, Sabrina admits. The kids, the family image, Ellie's influence. I thought if I could just make everything perfect on the outside, the inside wouldn't hurt so much, I finish. She nods, tears forming. The more I drank, the more I needed someone to blame. You were an easy target, Elle. The free spirit. The one who didn't care what people thought. I cared, I say quietly. I just learned to hide it better. Dr. Marcus turns to our parents. And how did you enable this dynamic? Dad shifts uncomfortably. We rewarded Sabrina's perfectionism, made her feel like she had to maintain it. While I got to be the disappointment, I add. No, Mom reaches for my hand. Never a disappointment, just different. We should have celebrated that difference instead of trying to make you both fit the same mold. Caitlin and Roman, sitting between their parents, have been quiet until now. Mom? Caitlin's voice is small. Remember when you yelled at me for getting a B in math? Sabrina's face crumples. Oh, baby. You said winners get A's. Then you drank your special juice and fell asleep during dinner. I remember, Roman adds. You forgot to make my lunch the next day. Aunt Ellie brought me McDonald's at school. Sabrina looks at me. You did? Someone had to, I shrug. They're my niece and nephew. I love them. Even when I tried to keep you away from them? Especially then. Dr. Marcus nods approvingly. This is good. Real. Raw. This is where healing starts. Aaliyah speaks up for the first time. I enabled you too, Sabrina. Covered for you. Made excuses. I was so afraid of our perfect life falling apart that I helped you maintain the lie. Until it almost destroyed everything, she whispers. But it didn't, Dr. Marcus reminds her. Because your sister chose truth over revenge, chose love over resentment. Sabrina turns to me. I read your diary too, you know. Found it when I was snooping in your old room, looking for evidence of what a bad influence you were. My stomach drops. The one from college? Yeah, about how you felt like you could never measure up to me. How you thought Mom and Dad loved me more. She wipes her eyes. I was so busy being perfect that I never saw how much I was hurting you. We both hurt each other, I say. But you saved me. She reaches for my hand. When you could have exposed me publicly, ruined my reputation, you chose to get me help instead. Dr. Marcus smiles. And that's what real family does. They choose healing over hurting. After the session, while everyone else heads to the cafeteria for lunch, Sabrina pulls me aside. I have something for you. She hands me a notebook. My recovery journal. I want you to read it. Sab, you don't have to. I do. Because you deserve to know that none of this was your fault. That my drinking wasn't about you, or the kids, or even Mom and Dad. It was about me not being able to face my own imperfections. I opened the journal to a random page. Day 15. Finally admitted I was jealous of Ellie's freedom, her ability to be herself. While I was drowning in expectations, she was learning to swim. Keep it, she says. Read it when you're ready, and know that my recovery isn't just about getting sober. It's about learning to be real, like you always were. Caitlin runs back, grabbing both our hands. Come on, they have ice cream for dessert. As we walk to the cafeteria, I realize something. The sister I wanted to expose, to get revenge on, never really existed. She was just as trapped as I was, just in a different kind of prison. And maybe that's what karma really is. Not revenge or punishment, but the moment when truth breaks through the perfect lies we tell ourselves, setting us all free in the process. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't in tearing someone down, but in helping them find the strength to rebuild themselves, one honest moment at a time. The autumn breeze rustles through the backyard as I help Sabrina set up for Roman's birthday party. No wine glasses in sight, just colorful cups filled with lemonade and sparkling water. You know what's weird? Sabrina adjusts a crooked balloon. This is the first party I've hosted sober in years. Nervous? Terrified. She laughs, but it's genuine now, not the high-pitched fake laugh from before. But present. Actually present. The doorbell rings. It's mom and dad with a massive cake. Behind them, kids from Roman's class start arriving with their parents. I notice some of the PTA moms giving Sabrina uncertain looks. Sandra, Sabrina approaches one of them directly. I know you've heard rumors. Yes, I went to rehab. Yes, I'm sober now. And yes, this party has 0 alcohol. The woman's face softens. 3 years clean myself, she whispers. We should talk sometime. As the party gets going, I watch Sabrina actually playing with the kids instead of just supervising from a distance. She's on the ground, helping Roman unwrap presents, laughing at his jokes, her hair messy from the party games. Look at her, Elias says, joining me by the snack table. Actually, look at her. I do. The designer clothes are gone, replaced by jeans and a comfortable sweater. The perfect makeup replaced by just a touch of mascara. But it's her eyes that are different, clear, present, alive. Mom! Caitlin calls from across the yard. Aunt Ellie, come take a silly picture with us. We squeeze into the photo booth they've rented, making ridiculous faces. Sabrina smears frosting on my nose. I retaliate by messing up her hair even more. Remember when we used to do this as kids? She asks as we review the photos. Before I got so obsessed with looking perfect in every shot? Yeah, back when we were just sisters instead of rivals. She grabs my hand. We're sisters again. Better sisters, maybe. The party winds down as evening approaches. The kids are sugar-crashed on the couch, watching Roman play his new video games. Parents are leaving with goodie bags and leftover cake. That was... Sabrina exhales heavily. Actually fun, not just pretend fun. You did good, sis. She starts cleaning up, then stops suddenly. Oh, I almost forgot. She runs inside and returns with an envelope. This is for you. Inside is a letter, handwritten. Dear Ellie, remember when you said you were gathering evidence to expose me? Well, I've been gathering evidence too. Evidence of all the times you showed up for my kids when I couldn't. All the times you chose to help me instead of hurt me. All the times you were the sister I should have been. I'm not perfect anymore. Don't want to be. But I am trying to be better. And a big part of that is thanking the person who loved me enough to risk losing me to save me. Thank you for being my sister, even when I forgot how to be yours. Love, Sabrina. You're crying, she says. No, you're crying, I reply, but we're both crying and laughing at the same time. Mom and Dad join us in the backyard cleanup, and for a while we all work in comfortable silence. You know, Dad says finally, I always thought having 2 completely different daughters was a challenge. Now I think it was a gift. How so? Mom asks. Because Ellie's strength helped us save Sabrina, and Sabrina's journey is helping us all be more real. Inside, we hear Caitlin squeal as Roman apparently beats some impossible game level. The sound of their genuine joy, their mother's clean laughter joining in, fills the cooling evening air. Want to stay for dinner? Sabrina asks. I'm making my famous lasagna. The one you used to make drunk or a new recipe? I tease. She throws a balloon at me. A new one. Everything's new now. Better. As we head inside, I realize this is what winning really feels like. Not the satisfaction of revenge, but the joy of redemption. Not the thrill of exposing someone's flaws, but the peace of helping them embrace those flaws and heal. Because in the end, the perfect life Sabrina was trying to protect never existed. But this imperfect, messy, real life, this is better than perfect. This is true. This is family. This is love. And that's the best revenge of all. Choosing love when hate would have been easier. Choosing healing when hurting was tempting. Choosing to be sisters again, not despite our differences, but because of them.
It was a typical Thursday evening at our place, nestled on the outskirts of a sprawling city. Tom and I had settled into our usual routine, him with a beer in hand, lounging on the couch after a long day at his auto repair shop, and me, Nora, eyes glued to my laptop, tracking the latest stock and cryptocurrency trends. Our home, a cozy 2-story we picked out for its promise of family and future, now felt more like a battleground for our increasingly divergent lives. So, how was the market today? Tom asked, his tone casual, but I sensed the underlying tension. It had become our norm. Same as always, ups and downs. Crypto's looking good, though, I replied, trying to keep the peace. Tom scoffed, setting his beer down with a little too much force. Crypto, again? You know, not everything that glitters is gold, Nora. I sighed, closing my laptop, bracing for the conversation we'd had countless times. And not every car that comes into your shop is worth fixing, but you do it anyway, because you see the value in it. Why can't you see the value in what I'm doing? Because cars are real, Nora. You can touch them, fix them, sell them. What you're doing, throwing our money at the wind, hoping it'll fly back with more, it's just reckless. I felt the anger bubble up, the same old argument wearing thin. Reckless? It's not reckless, Tom. It's calculated. There's a difference between gambling and investing. I wish you'd try to understand that. Tom stood up, pacing now. Calculated? You call putting our hard-earned money into something as volatile as cryptocurrency calculated? Yes, I do, because I don't go in blind. I research, I study trends, I make informed decisions. It's no different from what you do with your shop. My shop is a sure thing, Nora. People always need car repairs. But this? This is just a phase. What happens when it crashes, huh? What then? We could lose money in any investment, Tom. The shop could falter. Nothing's guaranteed. But we've seen good returns on my investments. Isn't that worth something? Tom stopped pacing, running a hand through his hair in frustration. It's not just about the money, Nora. It's about security, about not risking everything on a damn coin flip. Why can't we invest more in the shop, expand it? That's a real, tangible way to grow our money. And put all our eggs in one basket? What if something happens to the shop, Tom? Diversification is key. That's investing 101. He shook his head, the gap between our perspectives as vast as ever. Diversification, sure. But into something stable, not this digital fairy dust. I stood up now, feeling the need to defend my choices, my independence. You know, for someone who runs his own business, you're surprisingly close-minded. And you're surprisingly stubborn, he shot back. All I'm saying is, we could be using that money to build something lasting, something we can see and touch, not just numbers on a screen. The conversation was going nowhere, as usual. Let's just agree to disagree, okay? I won't criticize how you run your shop, and you don't criticize my investments. Tom sighed, the fight draining from him. Fine. But just remember, Nora, when all this blows up in your face, don't say I didn't warn you. The tension between Tom and me wasn't the only strain in our lives. His family dynamics added another layer of complexity. Living close to his parents and sister meant frequent interactions, each one a reminder of our differing views on family and responsibility. It was a Sunday afternoon when Tom suggested we visit his parents. The idea alone made my stomach knot. It wasn't the parents I minded, it was Sarah, Tom's sister. Her lifestyle and choices were a constant source of bewilderment to me. Come on, Nora, it's been ages since we've seen them. And Mum's been asking about you. And more. You know Dad is fighting cancer. Tom pressed, noticing my hesitation. Yeah, I bet Sarah's missed me too. I muttered, my sarcasm not lost on Tom. Look, I know you two don't see eye to eye, but can't you just... I don't know, try? For me? Sighing, I agreed. Fine, but I'm not staying if she starts on one of her shopping spree stories. We arrived to find Sarah already there, flaunting her latest designer bag. The air of superiority she carried like a perfume instantly grated on me. Look at this, just got it yesterday. Isn't it just fabulous? She gushed, barely acknowledging our presence. It's something, I managed to say, biting my tongue. Tom's mother, oblivious to the tension, ushered us in. Nora, dear, so glad you could make it. You two should visit more often. The afternoon dragged on, with Sarah dominating the conversation, recounting her latest vacation and shopping exploits. I tried to keep a neutral face, engaging in minimal conversation, but my patience was wearing thin. "So, Nora, still playing with your stocks and bits?" Sarah sneered, her tone dripping with disdain. "It's called investing, Sarah. You should try it sometime instead of blowing through money on things you don't need." I shot back, my annoyance breaking through. Tom shot me a warning look, but it was too late. Sarah scoffed. "Investing? Please, like gambling on the internet is anything to brag about. At least when I spend my money, I have something to show for it." "Something to show until it goes out of fashion next season," I retorted, unable to help myself. "That's enough, both of you," Tom's father interjected, his tone stern. "We're here to enjoy each other's company, not to argue about whatever this is." The rest of the visit passed in an uncomfortable silence. As we left, Tom couldn't hold back his frustration. "Nora, why do you have to provoke her? Can't you just let it go for one afternoon?" "Me? Provoke her? She's the one who started it with her snide remarks. I'm just not going to sit there and take it, Tom. It's just, sometimes I wish you'd try a little harder, for the sake of peace." "Try harder?" "Tom, I'm not the one splurging on luxuries and then flaunting them in everyone's face. Why doesn't anyone tell her to stop acting like a spoiled brat?" "Because she's family, Nora. We look out for each other, even if we don't always agree with what they're doing." "That's just it, Tom. Looking out for each other is one thing, but enabling bad behavior is another. There's a difference, and it's about time someone pointed it out to her." Tom sighed, the weariness evident in his voice. I know. But what can we do? She's set in her ways, and Mom and Dad aren't going to change how they treat her. It's not just about Sarah, Tom. It's about us, too. How are we supposed to plan for our future when there's always going to be this financial black hole in your family? "We'll figure it out, Nora. We always do." The news hit us hard and fast. Tom's dad, Mr. Harrison, had lost his battle with cancer. It felt like one moment we were discussing treatment options, and the next, we were plunged into mourning. Amidst the shock and grief, Sarah, Tom's sister, took charge of the funeral arrangements. It wasn't long before she dropped a bombshell on us about the cost. Sitting in our living room, looking like a storm cloud had settled over his head, Tom relayed what Sarah had told him. "Nora, Sarah says the funeral's gonna cost $60,000. She's expecting us to chip in half." I nearly choked on my tea. $60,000? Tom, that's insane. Are we funding a funeral or a royal wedding here? Tom's face darkened, his eyes narrowing. "Now's not the time, Nora. This isn't about the money. It's about giving my dad the send-off he deserves." "But $60,000? There has to be a mistake. It's too much." "Too much?" Tom's voice rose, and I could see the vein in his forehead starting to pulse. "My dad has just died, Nora. And here you are, haggling over pennies. What's wrong with you?" I flinched at his harshness. "I'm not haggling, Tom. I'm just shocked. We never even spent that kind of money on our own house." Tom stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You know what? I don't need this. I don't need you telling me what's too much for my own father's funeral. If you can't see past your damn spreadsheets for once, maybe you should just stay out of it." The hurt from his words cut deep, but I swallowed my retort. This was grief talking, not my Tom. "I'm sorry, Tom. I'll transfer the $30,000 to Sarah. It's just, this is a lot to process." Tom paced the room, hands buried in his hair, a gesture of frustration I'd come to recognize over the years. "Yeah, well, it's not just about the money, Nora. It's about doing right by him. And if that means paying whatever it costs, then so be it." When I confirmed the transfer to Sarah, Tom barely acknowledged it, lost in his own world of grief and anger. The distance between us felt like miles, not the few feet of our living room. Walking into the funeral agency, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. The last few days had been a blur of grief and confusion, but nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to learn. "I'm here for Mr. Harrison's funeral," I announced to the woman behind the counter, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up from her computer, her expression apologetic. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but you're a day late. Mr. Harrison was cremated yesterday." My heart stopped. "What? But, how? I was told the funeral was today." She shook her head gently, her eyes full of sympathy. "The family requested to move the date forward. I'm very sorry for your loss and the confusion." I stood there, dumbfounded, my mind racing. How could Tom not tell me? Why was I left in the dark about such a significant change? Fuming, I dialed Tom's number, my fingers shaking with anger and disbelief. "Tom, why the hell didn't you tell me the funeral was moved? I just showed up like an idiot, only to find out I missed everything." Tom's voice was cold, detached. "Because I didn't think you cared, Nora. All you've done is complain about the costs and question every decision. Why would I think you'd want to be there? Because he was my father-in-law. Because I'm your wife. How could you just exclude me like that?" My voice cracked, a mixture of hurt and fury. "Well, maybe not for long," he shot back, and I could almost hear the bitterness seeping through the phone. "What's that supposed to mean?" I demanded, my heart sinking. "I'm done, Nora. I can't do this anymore. I can't be with someone who's so indifferent. You're more concerned with your bitcoins and shares than with this family. I've got the divorce papers ready." His words were like a slap in the face. Divorce? Was he serious? "You're kidding, right? Over this?" "Tom, we can talk about it, we can work things out." "No, Nora. It's too late. The house is going up for sale. We'll split everything and go our separate ways. That's it." I was speechless, the reality of the situation crashing down on me. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be. Stunned, I wandered back to the parking lot, where I saw Sarah pulling in, driving a brand new luxury car. The sight of it made my blood boil. "Nice car, Sarah. Where'd you get the money for this? Inheritance?" Her smile didn't reach her eyes as she tossed her hair back. "Yeah, something like that. Dad left me a little something." The casual way she mentioned her father, with shopping bags in her hands and not a trace of sadness on her face, was infuriating. "A little something, huh? Looks like morning is treating you pretty well." Sarah's smile faded, replaced by a smirk. "Well, we all grieve in our own ways, don't we? Some of us invest in stocks, and some of us in cars." I clenched my fists, the injustice of it all burning inside me. This was all wrong. Tom and I were falling apart, and here was Sarah, benefiting from the chaos. "Enjoy the car, Sarah. Looks like it cost a pretty penny. Or should I say, a pretty dollar?" She laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in the empty parking lot. "Oh, Nora, always so concerned about the money. Don't worry, it's all been taken care of." I watched her walk away, her laughter lingering in the air. The man I loved wanted nothing to do with me, and the family I had tried to be a part of was showing their true colors. The days following the funeral felt like navigating through a thick fog of disbelief and betrayal. The weight of the divorce papers in my bag felt like carrying a boulder, a constant reminder of my crumbling marriage. But the sight of Sarah's new luxury car planted a seed of suspicion that I couldn't shake off. Determined to get to the bottom of it, I decided to pay a visit to the funeral home, hoping to uncover some answers. Walking into the funeral home, a mix of suspicion and determination fueled my steps. It felt surreal, being here under these circumstances, but I needed answers. The place was quiet, the air filled with a solemnity fitting its purpose. At the reception, I recognized a face from the past: Jackie, a classmate from high school who'd ended up in the most unexpected of places. "Jackie!" I exclaimed, a bit too loudly for the setting. "I didn't know you worked here." She looked up, surprise flickering across her face, before recognition set in. Nora? Wow, it's been ages. What brings you here? Something I can help with? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation ahead. Yeah, actually. It's about my father-in-law's funeral. I heard it was arranged here. Jackie's expression turned professional, but there was a hint of curiosity in her eyes. Sure, let me pull up the details. Give me a sec. As she typed away, I fidgeted, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. The moment she found the record, her brows furrowed. Okay, here it is. The service was pretty standard. Cremation was requested, keeping things on the simpler side. The total came to $5,000. My heart sank. $5,000? But that's not what we were told. We paid $60,000, or at least, we were led to believe that's what it cost. Jackie paused, her face a mask of concern. That's a huge difference. It was Sarah who handled the arrangements, right? Everything here was billed at $5,000, no more. The pieces were starting to fit together, a picture I didn't want to see. Can you print me a copy of that bill? I need proof. Sure thing, Jackie said, her tone sympathetic. She quickly printed out a duplicate of the check and handed it to me. Holding the paper, it felt like a piece of a puzzle that would unravel a bigger deception. Thanks, Jackie. I've got to sort this out. Armed with the printout from the funeral home, my next stop was confronting the family, particularly Sarah. The air felt heavy as I drove to my mother-in-law's house, where I knew they'd all be gathered, probably discussing the estate and the aftermath of the funeral. My stomach churned with a mix of dread and determination. When I arrived, the house was eerily quiet. I hesitated at the door, gathering my courage before stepping inside. The sound of my footsteps seemed to echo through the hallway, announcing my arrival. In the living room, Tom, Sarah, and my mother-in-law were seated, looking like a picture of mourning that was about to be shattered. My mother-in-law, her eyes shadowed with grief, broke the silence first. Dear, we missed you yesterday at the funeral. We thought you'd be there. Taking a deep breath, I replied, I was told it was today. I'm so sorry for your loss, my voice steady, despite the churn of emotions inside me. I then turned to Tom. Can we talk? In private? I hoped to spare his mother any more distress. Tom's response cut through the room. No secrets here. You're not part of this family anymore, remember? His words stung, but I pushed on, pulling out the check from the funeral home. Then explain this to me. The funeral cost $5,000, not the $60,000 Sarah claimed. Where did the rest go? Tom looked genuinely shocked, turning to Sarah with a bewildered, "What's this about?" Sarah squirmed under our gazes. I needed the money, she finally admitted, her voice small. The revelation seemed to hang in the air until Tom's mom, overhearing, added, "Your father saved for his own farewell." I even gave Sarah $10,000 more to cover everything. I did the math out loud, tension rising. $70,000 in total, and only $5,000 spent. Sarah, where's the rest? Flustered, Sarah confessed to splurging the money on a new car for herself, her gaze darting away, unable to meet mine. I expected Tom to explode, but instead, he almost tenderly told Sarah, "You shouldn't have done that. Be more careful next time." His response floored me. Careful? She committed fraud, Tom. And you're okay with that? Tom's justification left me reeling. You wouldn't understand. You've got no family, you don't get what it means to stick together. That was the last straw. In front of them all, I signed the divorce papers with a flourish. Sarah, you owe me $30,000. Pay up, or I'm going to the police. Tom's protests followed me out the door, but I didn't look back. I'd seen enough, heard enough. The betrayal was complete, and so was my resolve. As I walked away, the finality of my actions settled in. There was no going back, only forward from here, away from the lies and the deceit that had marred what I once thought of as family. Packing up my life into boxes felt surreal, like I was an observer in my own story. The for sale sign outside the house was a stark reminder of the finality of it all. By afternoon, I was settling into a small apartment that felt more like a fresh start than a downgrade. That evening, as I was sorting through the remnants of my past life, my phone rang. Tom's name flashed on the screen, a name I no longer felt attached to. I answered, curiosity edging out resentment. "Nora, you need to back off, Sarah." Tom's voice came through, tinged with an uncharacteristic harshness. "Back off?" I laughed, cold and sharp. "Not a chance, Tom. She took from me, and I want it back." "Your sister's a thief." Tom was silent for a moment. "She's family. You wouldn't understand." "Family?" I scoffed. "That ship has sailed, Tom. As far as I'm concerned, you and your sister are just people I used to know." He tried to argue, but I cut him off. "Save it. Sarah has 2 weeks to return my money, or I'm pressing charges. And you? Stay out of it. You're nothing to me now." Hanging up, I felt a mix of sadness and liberation. The man I once loved was now just another obstacle in my path to reclaiming my life. 2 weeks later, a knock at my door heralded the return of my $30,000. Sarah stood there, her posture defiant, a sneer playing on her lips. "Here's your money," she spat, thrusting an envelope into my hands. "Happy now, you money-grubbing witch?" I took the envelope, my gaze steady. "It's not about the money, Sarah. It's about principle. About not letting you walk all over people." She laughed, hollow and bitter. "Whatever helps you sleep at night." As she turned to leave, I called out, "Just remember, Sarah. Karma's a real pain. What goes around, comes around." Closing the door, I leaned against it, the envelope heavy in my hand. The money was a small victory, but the real win was standing up for myself, refusing to be a victim of their greed and lies. Life had found a new rhythm, calmer and more predictable, when out of the blue, my phone rang, displaying a number I hadn't seen in a while. It was Tom, a voice from a past I had neatly folded away. "Hey, I need a favor. A big one." Tom's voice sounded more worn than I remembered. I paused, the suddenness of the call throwing me. "A favor? Tom, we're past favors, don't you think?" "It's Sarah. She's in deep this time. Debt's up to her eyeballs, and the wolves are at the door. We've sold everything, the house, the shop, it's still not enough." His words took a moment to sink in. "And you're calling me why?" "I'm not part of this circus anymore, Tom." He sighed, a sound of desperation. "Come on, don't be like that. You got out, made it big with your trading. Can't you spare something, for old time's sake?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything, he still saw me as a lifeline for their mess. Spare something? For her? After she nearly ruined us with her lies? You've got some nerve, Tom. It's not just for her. It's for all of us. You wouldn't be where you are without me. Don't forget that," he countered, his voice edged with bitterness. A laugh, sharp and short, escaped me. "Where I am is despite you, not because of you. You think I owe you? That's rich." There was silence on the line, heavy and uncomfortable. "So, that's it then? You're going to turn your back on us?" "Us? There is no us, Tom. There hasn't been for a long time. And as for turning my back, I think you've got me confused with someone who still cares." Hanging up, I felt a mix of emotions. Anger, yes, but also relief. That chapter of my life was truly closed now. Sitting in the living room of my new house, a place I had earned with my sweat and smarts, I realized how far I had come. This was my sanctuary, built not on the shaky grounds of deceit and manipulation, but on my resilience and hard work. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was 26, full of life and not a care in the world, hanging out with a couple of friends at a local bar. That's when Alex walked in. He was a friend of a friend, someone I'd never met before. The moment our eyes met, something clicked. It wasn't love at first sight or anything cheesy like that, but there was a definite spark. "Hey, you must be the famous Alex I've heard so much about," I said, extending my hand with a playful grin. "Famous, huh? Can't say the same about you, but I'm sure I'll remember you after tonight," he shot back, shaking my hand with a firm grip. His smirk was cocky, but there was a twinkle in his eye that made me laugh. We spent the rest of the night talking, joking around, and getting to know each other. It wasn't just the booze talking, we genuinely clicked. Our friends noticed too, nudging each other and giving us knowing looks. "So, what do you do, Erica?" Alex asked, sipping his beer. "I'm stuck in an office job for now. Dreaming of bigger things, though. What about you?" I replied, rolling my eyes at my own situation. "I work in sales. It's alright, pays the bills. But like you, I've got bigger plans," he said with a shrug, as if it wasn't a big deal. The night flew by, and before I knew it, it was time to head home. Alex offered to walk me to my car, a gentlemanly gesture that surprised me given his earlier cockiness. "Hey, I had a really good time tonight. Can I see you again?" he asked, almost hesitantly, as we reached my car. I smiled, feeling the butterflies in my stomach. "I'd like that. But only if you promise to tone down the cockiness a bit." He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "Deal. But you've got to promise to keep up with my witty banter." "Deal," I said, shaking his hand again. This time, it felt like an agreement on more than just another meetup. It felt like the beginning of something special. We exchanged numbers, and I drove home with a silly grin plastered on my face. I couldn't stop thinking about him. There was something about Alex that felt right, like a puzzle piece I didn't know was missing. Over the next few days, we texted nonstop. Our conversations were filled with jokes, teasing, and getting to know each other on a deeper level. It was refreshing to meet someone who could match my sass and not get offended. A week later, we went on our first official date. It was nothing fancy, just dinner at a local diner, but it was perfect. We talked about everything and nothing, from our dreams and ambitions to our favorite TV shows. "You know, I never thought I'd meet someone like you in a place like this," Alex said, his tone serious for once. "Yeah? What's that supposed to mean?" I teased, raising an eyebrow. "It means, I'm glad I came to that bar that night. I'm glad I met you," he said, reaching across the table to take my hand. I felt a warmth spread through me. "Me too, Alex. Me too." That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't help but feel like my life was about to change. Little did I know just how much it would. Meeting Alex was the start of a journey, one that would bring laughter, tears, and challenges. But at that moment, all I knew was that I had met someone special, someone who could potentially be my partner in crime, my confidant, my friend. And maybe, just maybe, something more. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions and excitement. Every text, every call, every date felt like a step closer to something undefined but undoubtedly special. Alex was different from anyone I'd ever met. He was real, raw, and refreshingly honest. He didn't put up a front or try to impress me with grand gestures. He was just himself, and that was more than enough. Our banter was endless, and it was during these moments of playful disagreement that I found myself falling for him. It wasn't just about the laughter and the jokes, it was the comfort and ease I felt around him. I could be my true self, and he not only accepted that, he embraced it. As the weeks turned into months, our connection deepened. We shared our dreams, our pasts, and our hopes for the future. Alex became not just a significant part of my life, but a part of me. I couldn't imagine my days without him, without our talks, without his presence. And so, a year after that fateful meeting at the bar, we made a decision that would forever change our lives. We decided to get married. It wasn't a decision we took lightly, but one that felt natural, like the next step in our journey together. Life took a turn when Emma was born. I stepped into the role of a stay-at-home mom with open arms, a decision Alex and I agreed upon. But as the days turned into months, and months into years, I noticed a shift in Alex. The man I fell in love with, who used to make me laugh until my sides hurt, was fading away, replaced by someone I hardly recognized. "Another day, another mess, Erica," Alex muttered, stepping over toys scattered across the living room floor after a long day at work. His tone, once filled with warmth, now dripped with disdain. I looked up from where I was sitting, trying to sort through bills and manage our household finances, a task that had become increasingly challenging. "Emma's just being a kid, Alex. I'll clean it up in a bit," I said, attempting to keep the peace. "Maybe if you did more around here, I wouldn't come back to a pigsty every evening," he snapped, his frustration evident. His words stung. I spent my days chasing after our energetic 5-year-old, trying to keep our home in order, and yet, it was never enough. "I'm doing the best I can," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper, the fight draining out of me. "Your best? That's a laugh. Look at you, what do you even do all day?" Alex scoffed, his gaze scanning over me in a way that made me shrink back. I bit my lip, fighting back tears. This wasn't the Alex I knew. "I take care of our daughter, our home." "I'm trying, Alex." He shook his head, disappointment etched across his face. "Trying? You call this trying? You've let yourself go, and this place, it's a mess. I work all day, and I come back to this." I wanted to scream, to argue, to defend myself, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I turned my attention back to the bills, a lump in my throat. Silence filled the room, the tension thick. The next morning, I tried to shake off the hurt from our conversation. Emma needed me, and I refused to let Alex's harsh words dampen my spirits in front of her. We were in the kitchen, her laughter filling the space as I made pancakes, a temporary reprieve from the tension. "You're the best, Mommy," Emma said, her smile bright and genuine. I ruffled her hair, grateful for her innocent joy. "Thanks, sweetie. You make everything better." But the brief moment of happiness was shattered when Alex walked in, his expression sour. "Pancakes on a weekday? What are you trying to do, spoil her? And make us all late?" I sighed, bracing myself for another argument. "It's just pancakes, Alex. It won't hurt." He grabbed a coffee, his eyes rolling. "Whatever. Just make sure she's ready on time. I don't need to be late because of your little cooking show." As he left the room, Emma's smile faded, replaced by confusion. "Daddy's mad again?" I forced a smile, not wanting her to worry. "Daddy's just tired, honey. Eat your pancakes, okay?" The day Alex announced his business trip felt like a reprieve, a chance to breathe without walking on eggshells. But even that was marred by his parting words. "Keep the house clean while I'm gone. And try not to waste all my money," he said, suitcase in hand, not even bothering to look at me. "I'll manage," I replied, my voice steady, despite the turmoil inside. "We'll be fine." He shrugged, indifferent. "Yeah, well, we'll see about that." Watching him leave, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. This wasn't the life I envisioned when we said "I do." The love, the partnership, it all seemed like a distant memory, overshadowed by resentment and misunderstandings. In a house filled with tension and cold silences, I found my old brushes and paints one day, buried under years of neglected dreams. It felt like a lifetime ago since I last held them in my hands, back when I was a bright-eyed girl at the art studio, with my teacher telling me I had a future in painting. But life, as it often does, took me down a different path. I studied economics, a practical choice, and my canvases gathered dust. Painting again felt like a breath of fresh air, a momentary escape from the endless cycle of chores and Alex's growing indifference. Each stroke on the canvas was a whisper of the person I used to be, someone who had dreams and aspirations beyond these four walls. Really, Erica? Painting? What are you, 12? Alex's voice cut through my moment of peace one evening as he caught me setting up my easel in the living room. His parents were visiting, and they all stood there, staring at my setup like it was a joke. I bit my lip, feeling the familiar sting of embarrassment. I used to love painting, I managed to say, trying to defend my old passion. His mother snorted, looking over my shoulder at the half-finished canvas. Looks like a child's work. Wouldn't it be better if you did something useful instead? Alex joined in with a cruel laugh. Yeah, like maybe getting a job instead of wasting money on this nonsense. I felt my face flush with shame, the joy of painting souring in my mouth. I thought it might be nice to have something of my own. I whispered, more to myself than to them. Of your own? With what money? You're spending my hard-earned cash on this garbage? Alex's tone was sharp, his words like daggers. I use my savings, I replied quietly, my defense weak against his growing anger. Savings? What savings? From before we married? That's cute. Listen, because of your little hobby, I'm going to have to cut the budget around here. Can't have you blowing through my salary on your art, he said, the last word dripping with disdain. His parents nodded in agreement, their looks of disapproval etching deeper into my heart. I wanted to scream, to argue that it was my money too, that I had every right to find some joy in my life. But the words died in my throat, the fight drained out of me by years of being belittled and dismissed. From that day on, I kept my painting to myself, a secret refuge from the storms outside. I bought my supplies with what little money I could squirrel away, each canvas and tube of paint a tiny rebellion against the life I felt trapped in. Painting became my silent protest, my way of holding on to the parts of me that still dreamed of something more. The tension in the house could cut through steel when Alex's parents showed up. They never missed a chance to point out everything they thought I was doing wrong. Can't you even make a decent cup of coffee? His dad grumbled as I handed him a mug. I forced a smile, trying not to let the comment get to me. His mom wasn't any kinder. This breakfast, you call this special? Back in my day, we knew how to treat guests. Her nose turned up at the eggs and bacon I'd spent the last hour preparing. I bit my tongue, keeping the retort that was dancing on its tip at bay. I'm sorry you feel that way. I'll try to do better, I mumbled, feeling anything but sorry. As if on cue, Alex called. I excused myself, hoping for a brief escape from the criticism. But the call wasn't the respite I hoped for. Listen, I need you to get something for my boss's wife. Her birthday is coming up. Alex's voice was brisk, all business. I blinked, taken aback. Alex, I don't really have the budget for. I don't want to hear it. Figure it out. It's important. He cut me off, his tone final. And with that, he hung up. I stared at the phone, stunned. Solve it myself? With what? Magic? Frustration bubbled up, but it was quickly overshadowed by worry. I couldn't mess this up. Not for Alex. In desperation, I turned to the internet, scrolling through the boss's wife's social media for any hint of a suitable gift. That's when I stumbled upon her interest in painting and support for aspiring artists. It was a lightbulb moment. I couldn't afford a fancy gift, but maybe, just maybe, I could create something personal. Something meaningful. I decided right then, I'd paint her something. It felt like a solid plan, but I kept it to myself. Alex was already on edge, and I didn't need his scoffing or doubts. No, this would be my secret project. A chance to prove, if only to myself, that I could contribute something valuable. That I was more than the freeloader his parents saw or the inadequate wife Alex seemed to think I was. During that week, my apartment turned into a mini art studio. I was focused on creating something beautiful, something that would stand out. Beside me, I set up a tiny easel for Emma, my daughter, who was thrilled to join in. She decided to draw a portrait of me, her concentration face on, tongue poking out slightly as she worked. It was a mess of colors, but to me, it was perfect. Alex was away, wrapped up in his work, clueless about the plan brewing back home. When he finally called, it was just to confirm that we'd meet at his boss's wife's birthday bash. "Make sure you dress nicely," he added, as if I needed reminding. "Yeah, got it," I replied, my mind already racing through my wardrobe for the right outfit. It wasn't just about looking good, it was about feeling confident, something I hadn't felt in a while. The day of the party arrived quickly. I stood in front of the mirror, slipping into a dress that made me feel like myself again. It had been so long since I dressed up for anything. Emma watched, her eyes wide. "Mommy, you look like a princess," she exclaimed. I laughed, bending down to give her a hug. "Thank you, sweetie. Mommy has to go now, but I'll be back soon, okay?" Emma nodded, clutching the portrait she made of me. "Good luck, Mommy. Give your painting to the lady." With a deep breath, I grabbed my painting, now beautifully wrapped, and headed out. The drive to the mansion was a blur of nerves and anticipation. As I parked and stepped out, the enormity of the house hit me. It was more like a palace, with lights illuminating the grand architecture. I paused at the entrance, taking a moment to gather my courage. Inside, the sounds of laughter and music floated out, a world so different from my own. It wasn't just about giving a gift anymore, it was about proving to myself that I could stand tall in this crowd, that I was more than just Alex's wife or a stay-at-home mom. With a final deep breath, I stepped inside, my head held high, ready to face whatever came my way. This was it, the moment of truth. I was ready to join this society, to show them and myself what I was capable of. Stepping into the grandiose hall of the boss's mansion, the chandeliers overhead and the murmur of high society filled the air. I hadn't taken 2 steps before Alex found me, his eyes scanning me up and down with a frown. "What are you wearing, Erica? Look around you, do you see anyone else dressed like that? You stick out like a sore thumb," he hissed, not even bothering to hide his disappointment. I glanced around, noticing the elegant dresses and perfectly coiffed hair of the other women. I felt out of place, my confidence wavering under his critical gaze. "I thought I looked okay," I muttered, feeling small. Before I could defend myself further, he noticed the wrapped canvas under my arm. "Don't tell me that's what I think it is. You didn't." I nodded, clutching the painting a bit tighter. "It's a gift for your boss's wife. I thought she'd like it." Alex's face turned red, his anger palpable. "You thought? Are you a fool? This is a disaster. You're going to embarrass me in front of everyone with your amateur art." His words stung, but before I could respond, his loud complaints caught the attention of the very people we were talking about. The boss and his wife approached, curiosity and concern mixing on their faces. "What's all this about, Alex?" his boss asked, eyebrows raised. Alex, trying to regain composure, forced a laugh. "Oh, nothing much. My wife here thought it'd be a good idea to gift your wife one of her paintings. I tried to tell her it's not appropriate, but you know how it is." The guests around us snickered, their eyes on me, waiting to see my next move. The boss's wife, however, seemed intrigued. "I'd love to see it. I appreciate all forms of art," she said, her voice kind and encouraging. With trembling hands, I unwrapped the painting, revealing my work. The room fell silent as everyone waited for her reaction. The boss's wife studied the painting, her eyes moving over every detail. Then, her face broke into a genuine smile. "This is wonderful. Truly, you have a gift. How thoughtful of you to create something so personal." Alex's mouth hung open, his earlier bravado gone. The guests, too, were taken aback, their laughter dying down as they realized their mistake. I'm glad you like it," I stammered, a mix of relief and pride washing over me. The boss clapped Alex on the back, a knowing look in his eyes. "Looks like your wife knows how to make an impression, Alex. Well done." As the crowd dispersed, some throwing me impressed looks, Alex stood there, his earlier criticisms unspoken now. The boss's wife, intrigued by my unexpected gift, led me away from the bustling party to a quieter part of the mansion. The walls of this secluded room were adorned with an impressive array of paintings, each telling its own story. As we moved from one piece to the next, our conversation flowed effortlessly, delving into techniques, styles, and the stories behind the canvases. "I'm quite surprised," she admitted, her eyes reflecting genuine interest. "You understand art deeply, Erica. Ever thought of organizing your own exhibition?" Her question caught me off guard, sending waves of embarrassment and excitement through me. "Me? An exhibition? I wouldn't even know where to start," I stammered, the idea seeming as distant as the stars. It was then Alex found us, his timing as impeccable as ever. Overhearing the tail end of our conversation, he laughed, the sound harsh and unwelcome. "An exhibition? For what? Her kitty scribbles? Come on, let's go home. This party's over for us." The boss's wife's expression shifted from warm to cold in an instant, clearly not pleased with Alex's interruption or his demeaning words. I felt a rush of embarrassment, but also a spark of defiance. For once, I wasn't going to let his words dictate how I felt about myself or my art. "No, Alex," I said, my voice steady, stronger than I felt. "I'm not going home. Not yet. I want to explore this idea, my own exhibition." His face turned a shade of red I hadn't seen before, his eyes wide in disbelief. Without another word, he stormed off, leaving a trail of awkward silence behind him. The drive home later that night was a battle between elation and dread. I had stood up for myself, but at what cost? As soon as I stepped through the door, Alex was there, his anger boiling over. "You've embarrassed me. In front of my boss, my colleagues. What were you thinking?" he yelled, pacing back and forth. I took a deep breath, my decision made in the clarity of his tirade. "I was thinking about my future, Alex. A future where I'm more than just your wife, more than a housekeeper. If that embarrasses you, then maybe we shouldn't be together." His ranting stopped, his face a mix of confusion and shock. "What are you saying? You want a divorce? Over some stupid paintings?" "Yes, Alex. A divorce," I said, the words feeling surreal even as they left my mouth. "I can't live like this anymore. Being belittled, feeling trapped. I want more from life, and if that means without you, then so be it." The silence that followed was deafening. Alex stood there, staring at me as if seeing me for the first time. The man who had left in a huff at the party was now the one in shock, unsure of what to do next. After deciding to divorce Alex, I braced myself for a storm, but nothing could have prepared me for the hurricane that ensued. The divorce was messy, to say the least. Alex turned it into a battlefield, contesting every single detail. He didn't want to part with a penny, especially when it came to alimony for Emma, our daughter. He even tried to keep most of our shared assets, leaving me to fight tooth and nail for what was rightfully half mine. The whole debacle wasn't just confined to family and close friends, it spilled over into Alex's professional life. His colleagues and even his boss caught wind of his less-than-stellar behavior during our divorce. The man who prided himself on his impeccable reputation at work saw it tarnished. Before long, whispers of his pettiness and vindictiveness led to his demotion. It was a steep fall from grace for someone who had always put his career above everything else. In the midst of this turmoil, an unexpected ally emerged, Alex's boss's wife. She fulfilled her promise and organized my first personal exhibition. It was an opportunity one never dreamed of, a silver lining in the dark cloud that had loomed over my life. With her guidance and support, my paintings found an audience. People were drawn to my work, seeing stories and emotions in my brushstrokes. I held several solo exhibitions, each more successful than the last. My paintings began to sell, not just to friends and acquaintances, but to strangers who felt a connection to my art. The money I earned from my paintings allowed Emma and me to move into a nice apartment, a place we could call our own. It was a fresh start, a chance to rebuild our lives on our terms. Looking back, I never imagined my life taking such a turn. The pain of the divorce and the ugliness that came with it seemed insurmountable at the time. But through it all, I discovered my strength, my passion, and my ability to stand on my own. As I sit in our new living room, surrounded by canvases and paint, I can't help but feel optimistic about the future. For the first time in a long time, I'm excited about what lies ahead. Emma, now thriving in a happier, healthier environment, is my constant reminder that we made it through the storm. Growing up in a small town with folks who believed in hard work over anything fancy, I was your typical girl next door, Margie. My family wasn't rich, but we were happy, and they instilled in me the value of hard work from a young age. After college, chasing a slice of independence, I moved to a bigger city, a place that felt like a different world. It was there my life took a turn I never saw coming. I landed a job as a sales manager at a big company, which was a big deal for a small-town girl like me. The job was demanding, but I thrived on the challenge. Unlike my peers, who were all about hitting the clubs after work, I was more likely to be found curled up with a book or working overtime. That was until David walked into my life. David was everything I didn't know I was looking for. He was charming, with a smile that could light up the darkest rooms, and a sense of humor that could make anyone laugh. We met through work, and what started as casual coffee breaks turned into long dinners, and before I knew it, I was head over heels. I can't believe how lucky I am. I remember telling him one evening as we walked along the river, the city lights reflecting like stars in the water. "Believe it, Margie. You're the best thing that's happened to me," he said, his hand finding mine. It wasn't long before we got married. It was a simple ceremony, nothing too fancy, just how we liked it. Our daughter, Lily, came into our lives not long after, and suddenly, our little family felt complete. Life was good. David and I found joy in the simple things. We'd take Lily out on weekends with our mobile home, exploring the outskirts of the city, or sometimes just walking in the park, letting her chase the pigeons while we walked hand in hand. But it wasn't all play. Balancing work and family life was tough. After Lily was born, I switched to working half days to be there for her more. David was supportive, always saying, "Do what you need to, babe. We'll make it work." And we did. We were a team, tackling household chores together, making meals, and taking care of Lily. David's parents were a big help too. They adored Lily and were always there when we needed a hand. "You two are doing great," David's mom would often say. "It's not easy, but you're making it look like it is." It felt like we had everything figured out. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. One evening, as we were cleaning up after dinner, David mentioned working late more often. "The project's picking up steam. Gonna need to put in extra hours," he said, almost apologetically. I understood, or at least I tried to. "We'll manage. Just don't work yourself too hard," I replied, trying to keep the worry out of my voice. The shift was gradual, like the slow buildup of clouds before a storm, unnoticed until the downpour is upon you. David's late nights became more frequent, and the warmth that used to fill our home started to cool. I tried to shrug it off, telling myself it was just the stress of his job. But deep down, I knew something was off. Lily started asking more about her dad. "Why isn't Daddy home for dinner?" Her innocent questions were like punches to my gut. I did my best to soothe her. "Daddy's got to work, sweetie. He'll be home soon." But the soon stretched longer and longer. One day, I got held up at work, something I couldn't avoid. I called David, hoping he could pick up Lily from school. His reaction was like a slap across my face. "What do you mean you're stuck? Can't you see I'm swamped? Handle your own mess," he snapped over the phone, before hanging up. Tears stung my eyes, not just from his words, but from the shock of hearing him talk to me like that. I'd never seen this side of him. Panicking, I called his mom. "Hey, it's me. I'm in a bind. Can you grab Lily from school?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Of course, dear. Is everything all right with David? She replied, concern evident in her voice. Yeah, just work stuff. Thanks, I owe you one, I managed, feeling a mix of relief and embarrassment. As days turned into weeks, David's detachment grew. He wasn't just absent physically, but emotionally too. Our home felt like a house with no life in it. I tried talking to him, reaching out, trying to bridge the gap that kept widening between us. David, we need to talk. This, whatever this is, it's not working. Lily misses you, I miss you, I said one night, mustering all the courage I had. He barely looked at me, his eyes glued to his phone. What do you want from me, Margie? I'm here, aren't I? Just tired, that's all, he muttered, his tone dismissive. But that's just it, you're here but not really. You don't talk to us, to me. What's going on? I pressed, desperate for any crumb of affection or concern. Nothing's going on. Drop it, he snapped, standing up to leave the room. His indifference was a bitter pill to swallow. I lay awake that night, listening to the silence of our home, a stark contrast to the laughter and love that used to fill it. The change in David wasn't just hurting me, it was affecting Lily too. She became quieter, her bright spark dimming with each day her father pushed us away. It wasn't just the emotional distance, David stopped helping around the house altogether. Tasks we used to share now fell squarely on my shoulders. I felt like a single parent. Why doesn't Daddy play with me anymore? Lily's voice broke through my thoughts one evening as I washed the dishes. I turned to her, forcing a smile. Daddy's just busy, honey. But we can play, what do you say? Your choice of game, I offered, trying to mask the ache in my heart. She nodded, a small smile on her lips, but her eyes were searching, looking for the father she adored and missed. The divide between us grew, and with it, my loneliness. I turned to David's parents for support, spending more time at their place just to feel some connection to the man I married. They noticed the change too, but were at a loss on how to help. It's just a rough patch, dear. Every marriage has them. David's mom tried to reassure me, but her eyes told a different story, one filled with concern and uncertainty. As the days passed, the silence in our home grew louder, a stark reminder of the rift between David and me. I clung to the hope that maybe, just maybe, things could go back to how they were. In a desperate attempt to break through the ice that had formed around us, I planned a surprise. I bought tickets to a local music show, thinking it could reignite the spark we once had. The moment I told David about the surprise, his reaction was far from what I had hoped for. A music show? Seriously, Margie? You know I'm swamped with work. I don't have time for this, he said, barely looking up from his laptop. But it's been ages since we did something as a family. Lily would love it, and I thought it could be a nice break for us, together, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite the hurt his words caused. Great, another thing to add to my never-ending to-do list. Thanks, but I'll pass. You two go and have fun, he said dismissively, turning his attention back to his work. I stood there, feeling like a fool. The rejection stung, not just because he didn't want to go, but because it felt like he didn't want to spend time with us at all. Lily, sensing the tension, came over and tugged at my hand. Is Daddy not coming with us, Mommy? She asked, her big eyes filled with confusion. I forced a smile, bending down to her level. It's just going to be a girls' night out. We'll have fun, just you and me, I said, trying to sound more excited than I felt. Lily nodded, though I could tell she was disappointed. It broke my heart to see her having to adjust to this new version of her father. As David's absences became more frequent, I found myself fighting a lonely battle to keep our family together. He started leaving for the entire weekend, claiming work demanded it. Another weekend? David, this is getting ridiculous. You're never home anymore. Lily keeps asking about you. I confronted him one evening. Look, I don't need this right now, Margie. Work is crazy, and I'm doing the best I can. Maybe if you were a little more understanding instead of constantly nagging, things would be better, he retorted, his words dripping with annoyance. Nagging? I'm trying to have a conversation about our family, about us. You're hardly here, and when you are, you're like a ghost. How is that fair to Lily or me? I shot back, my frustration boiling over. Just leave it, Margie. You wouldn't understand, he said before walking out, leaving me standing there, fuming and feeling more alone than ever. The evenings he claimed to spend with colleagues stretched later and later, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more he wasn't telling me. The loneliness was suffocating, and I found solace in the only place I could, with Lily and David's parents. During one of our dinners at David's parents' house, his mother noticed my subdued mood. Margie, dear, you barely touched your food. Is everything all right? She asked, her voice full of concern. I hesitated, not wanting to burden her with my problems, but the words spilled out. I feel like I'm losing him, and I don't know what to do. He's always working or out, and when he's home, it's like he's not really here. Lily misses him, and I miss my husband. David's father, who had been quietly listening, chimed in. Have you tried talking to him, really sitting him down and telling him how you feel? I let out a humorless laugh. Talking to David? It's like talking to a wall these days. He doesn't listen, or worse, he gets angry. I'm at my wit's end here. David's increasing late nights and vague excuses pushed me to a decision I never thought I'd make. Hiring a private investigator felt like crossing an invisible line, but the need to understand his actions overshadowed my reservations. Weeks went by with a strange mix of anticipation and dread until the unexpected happened. Our anniversary was approaching, and David surprised me with an invitation to celebrate at an upscale restaurant, promising a weekend together just like old times. I couldn't hide my excitement. Really, David? Just us, like before? I asked, hardly believing the shift in his attitude. Yeah, thought it'd be nice. A break from all the craziness, he replied, his tone casual, almost nonchalant. With renewed hope, I arranged for David's parents to look after Lily, sharing my joyous news. The day arrived with a mix of nerves and excitement. The restaurant was as beautiful as promised, creating a backdrop that felt like a step into our past, a reminder of better days. David was already there, waiting. His gesture of offering me a glass of wine took me by surprise. Come on, let's celebrate. Just this once, he urged when he saw my hesitation. I laughed, a bit uneasy. You know I'm not much for drinking, but okay, just this once, I agreed, wanting to make the most of this rare moment between us. The evening was a blur of wine and toasts. David kept filling my glass, each time insisting, to us. It felt like a dream, our problems momentarily washed away by the ambience and alcohol. But as the night wore on, I felt increasingly unwell, a heaviness dragging me down into a drowsy haze. David, I don't feel so good. I think I need to lie down, I mumbled, struggling to keep my eyes open. Don't worry, I got you. Let's get you home, he said, his voice distant as he helped me into the car. The world outside the car window slipped into darkness as I fell into a troubled sleep, only to be jolted awake by a sudden stop. The air was cold, and I was barely conscious when David dragged me out of the car and onto a bench. Through the fog of my mind, I heard his words, sharp and clear, cutting deeper than any knife. You're just so tiring, Margie. Always there, always expecting so much. I can't do this anymore. His words were a cruel echo in the darkness as I tried to process them, but my body wouldn't cooperate. The world spun, and I felt myself slipping away, his voice the last thing I clung to before darkness claimed me completely. Waking up in the clinic was like trying to piece together a puzzle with half the pieces missing. The pounding in my head matched the confusion swirling through my mind. There, beside me, stood my mother-in-law, her face etched with worry. You're awake, thank God, she sighed, a hand clutching her heart. We found you in a bad part of town, no bag, no ID, nothing. What on earth happened? I tried to sit up, the effort sending waves of nausea through me. I was with David. We had dinner for our anniversary. He said he'd take me home. I managed, the words sounding hollow even to me. Her brows knitted in confusion. But that can't be. David's been out of town. He called yesterday to check on Lily. Said he was sorry he couldn't be here. That didn't make any sense. My head spun not just from the pain but from the stark disbelief. But he was there, we had dinner, I trailed off, the reality sinking in. My own husband's actions were a mystery, his alibi a lie. The worry in her eyes deepened. Let's get you home. We can sort this out later. How's Lily? That was the first coherent thought I had. My daughter, my little girl, was she okay? She's fine, dear. Been asking for you. Let's get you better so you can see her. She reassured me, helping me to my feet. The days that followed were a blur of rest and whispered conversations. I stayed with my mother-in-law, the atmosphere charged with unasked questions. Once I felt stronger, I knew what I had to do. I called the detective I had hired weeks ago, the one I hoped would shed light on David's mysterious behavior. Margie, I have the report. We need to meet. The detective's voice was grave over the phone, promising answers I wasn't sure I was ready for. I met him at a quiet cafe. The envelope he handed me felt like it weighed a ton. What's in here? My voice was barely a whisper, fear and anticipation battling within me. Take your time with it. It's a lot to process, he cautioned, his eyes not hiding his concern. Back at my mother-in-law's house, I braced myself for the worst. The envelope contained photos, receipts, a detailed account of David's comings and goings, evidence of a life I was not a part of, a betrayal laid bare on paper. My hand shook as I absorbed every word, every image. This was the proof of the lie my marriage had become. The man I thought I knew, the life I thought we had built together, it was all a facade. As I drove to the address the detective had given me, my mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, betrayal, but above all, a fierce determination to confront the truth. The evening air felt heavy as I parked outside the nondescript apartment building. With each step towards the door, my resolve hardened. The door was surprisingly unlocked, a foreboding welcome to the scene I was about to witness. Inside, I found them, David and his brightly haired mistress, lounging as if they owned the world. The shock on David's face upon seeing me was almost satisfying, almost enough to dull the sharp edge of betrayal. So this is the hard work that's been keeping you busy every night, huh? I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice, nor did I want to. The woman, with her pink hair and bright suit, just smirked at me, arrogance dripping from every pore. You shouldn't have come here. It would have been easier for you to just disappear, she sneered, making my blood boil. I turned to David, my heart aching with the betrayal. How could you do this? To me, to us? I demanded, though a part of me doubted any answer could ease the pain. She laughed, a sound so cold it sent shivers down my spine. Because you've been in the way of our happiness. We've wanted you gone for a long time, she said, her cruelty cutting deep. But I wasn't there to break. I stood my ground, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. I know all about your plans. I'm not here to beg or cry. I've seen the evidence. I know about the poison, and the police do too. I revealed the evidence I had gathered, the blood test showing the presence of psychotropic substances, the detailed report from the detective outlining David's betrayals, and the video evidence collected by the police that incontrovertibly showed David's attempts to harm me. Their faces fell, but it was the mistress who recovered first. You can't prove a thing. You're out of your depth, she hissed, but her bravado couldn't mask the fear in her eyes. I pulled out my phone, showing them the recordings of their plotting, their plans to get rid of me. It's all here. The police have everything they need. And there's more, much more. David tried to speak, but the woman cut him off, still playing the queen of denial. You think this is over? You think you've won? She spat, but her words were desperate, the threats empty. I faced them both, my heart heavy but my conscience clear. This was never about winning or losing. It's about justice. For me, for anyone you might have tried to hurt after me. You won't get away with it. As I left, their stunned silence was a cold comfort. The night air felt sharper, somehow, as I stepped outside, but I walked away with my head held high. I had confronted the darkest part of my life head-on, not with violence or anger, but with the truth. The courtroom was charged with tension, every eye fixed on the drama unfolding. It was the day of reckoning for David and his mistress, the day their fates would be sealed by the weight of their own deceit. Despite their defiant denials, the evidence spoke louder than their lies. As the prosecutor laid out the evidence, it was like reliving the nightmare all over again. First came the restaurant's security footage, a silent witness to David slipping something into my glass, a betrayal captured in grainy clarity. Then, the city's cameras painted a damning trail, showing David abandoning me in a place no one should ever be alone at night. The final nail in the coffin was the medical reports, undeniable proof of the toxins coursing through my veins, a sinister attempt on my life. David and his mistress sat side by side, a united front in their guilt. Their attempts to brush off the evidence were pathetic, their lies crumbling under the weight of truth. It's all a misunderstanding, David tried to argue, his voice lacking any conviction. The mistress chimed in, her arrogance undimmed. That evidence could have been doctored. You have no proof it was us, she sneered, trying to sound confident. But the evidence was irrefutable. The videos, the tests, the detective's thorough investigation, it all pointed to one undeniable conclusion. They were guilty, and justice was about to be served. The judge's gavel was a sound of finality. Based on the overwhelming evidence presented, this court finds the defendants guilty as charged, the judge declared, his voice echoing through the silent courtroom. And then, the financial compensation, it wasn't about the money, not really. It was about accountability, about making them pay in some small way for the havoc they wreaked on my life and my daughter's. Life now is a stark contrast to those shadowed days. My daughter and I have found peace, a new beginning forged from the ashes of our past. Our home is filled with laughter and love, a safe haven that once seemed impossible to reclaim. We did it, Mommy. My daughter's words are a balm to my soul, her smile the brightest light in my life. Yes, we did, sweetheart. We're going to be just fine, I assure her, and in my heart, I know it's true. The journey was long and fraught with pain, but standing here now, with my daughter by my side, I'm reminded of the strength and resilience that lies within us. We've weathered the storm and emerged stronger, ready to face the future with hope and courage. David's parents, once figures I respected and admired, showed their true colors in the aftermath. They were devastated by their son's actions, heartbroken by the betrayal and harm he caused. The day they decided to cut ties with him and rewrite their will, leaving everything to Lily, my daughter, was a day I'll never forget. I remember sitting down with them, the air thick with a mix of sorrow and determination. We can't undo what David did, but we want to make sure Lily is taken care of, they said, their voices steady but filled with an underlying pain. I was taken aback, not just by their generosity, but by their resolve. I don't know what to say. Lily, she'll have a future now, thanks to you. I managed, my voice choked with emotion. It's what's right. She's our granddaughter, and we love her. We want to make sure she knows she's not defined by her father's mistakes, they replied, a firmness in their tone that left no room for argument. Life since then has been a series of adjustments, of finding our footing in this new reality. I went back to work full-time, diving into my role with a renewed sense of purpose. Balancing work and being a single mom to Lily hasn't been easy, but it's been our life, and it's been good. My mother-in-law, bless her soul, has been a godsend. She stepped up in ways I couldn't have imagined, becoming not just a caregiver for Lily but a pillar of strength for me. Our bond, forged in the fires of family drama, has become unbreakable. Lily's lucky to have you, you know. We both are, I told her one evening as we shared a quiet cup of tea after putting Lily to bed. She waved me off, her usual modest self. Nonsense. I'm just doing what any grandmother would. Besides, seeing you two happy is all the thanks I need. Our conversations, once filled with the pain and confusion of David's betrayal, now revolve around plans for the future, Lily's latest achievements, and the simple joys of our day-to-day lives. We laugh more, worry less, and cherish the peace that has settled over our home. Lily, growing more each day into a bright and curious young girl, is the light of our lives. She knows she is loved, cherished, and supported, not just by me, but by the extended family that rallied around her. "Mommy, when I grow up, I want to be strong like you," Lily said to me one night, her words filling my heart with warmth. "You already are, my love. You're the strongest person I know," I replied, tucking her in, a sense of contentment settling over me. Life had its own way of being unremarkable for me. My name's Rita, and at 29, you'd find me tucked away in the local library. It wasn't glamorous or thrilling, but it was mine. The books were my companions, and the dusty shelves my domain. I wasn't one for the spotlight, happy to fade into the background. The town was small, the kind where everyone knew your business before you did. My daily routine rarely varied: wake up, work, and then home to my tiny apartment filled with second-hand furniture and a mountain of books. My social life was non-existent, and I was fine with that, or so I kept telling myself. Ethan came into my life on a day much like any other. He was looking for a book, something different, he said. His smile was easy, and his voice had a warmth to it that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Hey, could you help me find a book? I'm feeling adventurous," he said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Sure, what genre are you interested in?" I asked, adjusting my glasses, trying not to get too caught up in his gaze. "I don't know, surprise me," he replied with a grin that suggested he enjoyed the mundane challenge he'd set before me. That was the beginning of everything. Our conversations became a regular part of my days. He'd ask about books, and I'd recommend titles, but soon those conversations shifted from the pages of novels to the details of our lives. Ethan was different. He listened, really listened, in a way that made me feel heard for the first time in a long while. One day, he came in looking more determined than usual. "You know, Rita, you're the most interesting person I've met in this town. Why do you hide in here all day?" he asked, leaning on the counter, a playful challenge in his eyes. I laughed, a sound that felt strange even to my own ears. "Well, where else would I go? This town isn't exactly bursting with excitement." Ethan's response was quick. "Maybe you just need someone to explore it with. How about dinner tonight? My treat." I hesitated, not used to this kind of attention. "I don't know, Ethan. Come on, what's the worst that could happen? You spend an evening out with a guy who enjoys your book recommendations. Plus, I promise to make it worth your while. You can show me this hidden gem of a town," he coaxed, his confidence infectious. Against my better judgment, I found myself agreeing. "Okay, sure. But no fancy places, I don't do well with all that pomp." "Deal," Ethan said, his smile lighting up the room. "I'll pick you up at 7. Wear something comfortable." That night changed everything. Ethan showed me parts of the town I'd never seen, despite having lived here my whole life. He made me laugh, a deep, genuine laugh that I hadn't known I was capable of. He listened to my stories, my dreams, and my fears, never once making me feel small or insignificant. As we walked back to my apartment, he stopped and looked at me, a seriousness in his eyes. "Rita, I know we've only just met, but there's something about you. You're not like anyone I've ever known. You're genuine, and in a world full of fakes, that's rare." I didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken to me like that before. Ethan, He cut me off, gently placing a finger on my lips. You don't have to say anything. Just know that I see you, Rita. I see the person you are, and I like what I see. Ethan had always been the sweet spot in my day, making everything seem brighter with his care and affection. He had this way of making me feel seen, calling me beautiful, kind, and smart, things I hardly believed about myself. It was his warmth that won me over, making the idea of forever seem not just possible, but desirable. When he popped the question, it felt like a dream. Marry me, Rita. I can't imagine my life without you, he had said, his eyes shining with sincerity. I didn't hesitate. Yes, I breathed out, feeling a mix of excitement and disbelief. But before we could get lost in the whirlwind of wedding planning, there was one crucial step we had to take, meeting his parents. Ethan had given me a heads up, a sort of pre-warning. My folks, they have a bit of a high standard for who I bring home. But don't sweat it, okay? They're gonna love you once they see how amazing you are, he assured me, though his nonchalance did little to ease my nerves. I was a wreck before the meeting, rummaging through my wardrobe for something that screamed modest yet dignified. It felt like an impossible dress code to crack. Ethan, on the other hand, was the picture of calm, almost disinterested, as if the outcome of this meeting didn't weigh on him at all. You're overthinking it, Rita. Just wear what you're comfortable in, he said casually, which only frayed my nerves further. The day arrived, and I chose a simple blue dress that I hoped struck the right balance. As we drove to his parents' house, Ethan seemed more preoccupied with the music on the radio than the impending introduction. You sure they're gonna like me? I asked, seeking some reassurance. They'll come around. Just be yourself, Ethan replied, his attention briefly flitting to me before returning to the road. His laid-back attitude felt jarring compared to the storm of anxiety brewing inside me. Walking up to the door of Ethan's childhood home, my heart was pounding. His earlier warnings echoed in my head, painting a picture of the scrutiny I was about to face. The door swung open, and we were greeted by Ethan's parents, their expressions hard to read. The dinner that followed was a minefield. Ethan's parents grilled me with questions that felt more like an interrogation than casual dinner conversation. So, Rita, Ethan tells us you work at a library. Do you see yourself doing that long term? His father asked, his tone suggesting he found my job lacking. I fumbled for an answer, trying to sound confident. I love working there. It's fulfilling in a way I can't quite describe, I said, hoping my passion would be enough to win them over. Ethan was strangely quiet throughout, offering little support as I navigated the barrage of questions and veiled criticisms. It felt like I was alone on the battlefield, with Ethan retreating into a role of passive observer. As we drove home, the silence in the car was deafening. I couldn't help but feel disappointed, not just in the evening's events, but in Ethan's indifference. I thought you said they'd warm up to me. I finally broke the silence, my voice tinged with hurt. Ethan shrugged, a frustratingly nonchalant gesture. Give it time, Rita. They just need to get to know you better, he said, his words doing little to comfort me. After a few more dinners that felt more like interrogations than friendly meals, it was clear Ethan's folks weren't my biggest fans. They saw me as some kind of gold digger, I guess, which couldn't be further from the truth. I was never after Ethan's money, heck, I barely knew about it until he brought it up himself one evening, saying, "My parents are a bit old school, you know? They worry about the weirdest things, like money and status." One night, Ethan came home looking more serious than usual. "Babe, we need to talk," he said, avoiding my eyes. That's when I knew something was up. "What's wrong?" I asked, feeling my stomach tie up in knots. "It's my parents," he started, finally looking at me. "They're insisting we sign a prenup." A prenup? The word felt foreign, bitter on my tongue. "Ethan, you know I don't care about your money, right?" He sighed, running his hands through his hair. I know. And I don't care about it either, not when it comes to us. but they're adamant about it. They think it'll protect both of us or whatever. I was hurt, not gonna lie. It felt like they were already betting on our failure. But I loved Ethan more than I cared about his parents' approval or some stupid agreement. Fine, I said, more sharply than I intended. Let's sign it and be done with it. Your money, my money, whatever. I don't care. I just want you. Ethan looked relieved, and a part of me hated that. Thank you, babe. I hate this as much as you do, but it's just a piece of paper. It won't change anything between us. So, we signed the damn thing. Some lawyer his parents knew drew it up, making sure neither of us could touch the other's stuff if things went south. It felt like signing a declaration of distrust before we even started, but I pushed those thoughts away. I was in love, and love was supposed to conquer all, right? Our wedding was nothing grand, just the way I wanted it. A few close friends, an intimate ceremony, and the promise of forever. I moved into Ethan's place shortly after. It was a nice house, nothing too fancy, but it felt miles away from my old apartment. Ethan's parents lived nearby, which I soon found out meant surprise visits that were more about checking up on me than anything else. Life with Ethan started off like something out of a fairy tale, but it wasn't long before the gloss started to fade, revealing the grim reality beneath. The shift wasn't overnight, but the signs were there, creeping in slowly, eroding what we had built. His mother, Linda, was the first crack in our perfect picture. She'd drop by unannounced, her eyes scanning the house like she was taking inventory. Remember, this is Ethan's house. Everything here is his. I tried to keep my cool, replying, I'm well aware, Linda. I'm not here for your son's things. I love him. She scoffed. Love doesn't pay the bills, dear. Just remember, if you ever leave, you leave with what you came with, nothing. One day, she paraded around the house, pointing out every piece of furniture, every appliance, every knickknack that Ethan owned. See this couch? Ethan's. That painting? Also Ethan's. Remember, dear, in case things go south, you have no claim over any of it, she said, her voice laced with venomous sweetness. It was as if she relished reminding me of my place in their world. Ethan's father, George, wasn't any better. He and Linda acted like they owned our house, not just visiting. They'd demand coffee the moment they walked in, critique how I made it too weak or too strong, then settle in front of the TV, expecting me to wait on them hand and foot. Grab us some of those chips, will you? And maybe wash those clothes piling up in the corner while you're at it, George would say, not even bothering to look at me. The worst part? Ethan never said a word against it. He'd laugh along, adding his own jabs. Yeah, she's still learning how to do things right around here. Give her time. I felt like I was losing my mind. This wasn't the man I married, this was someone else, someone cruel and dismissive. Do you even hear yourself? How can you let them treat me like this? I'd confront Ethan after his parents left. Babe, they're just set in their ways. You know how old people are. He'd shrug it off, making it sound like I was the one overreacting. They don't mean anything by it. Plus, you know we're on their dime. Can't bite the hand that feeds, right? That line hit me like a slap in the face. So, that was it. I was just the freeloader, the girl who married into their little empire and had to play by their rules or get out. My job at the library, which I loved, was a joke to them, just another reason to look down on me. The days blurred into each other, each one a repetition of the last, until that unremarkable Tuesday when everything changed. I was at work, shelving books, when I felt a sharp pain in my stomach, doubling me over. It wasn't just stress, it was something more, something worse. The next thing I knew, I was in the hospital, the sterile smell of antiseptic filling my nostrils. Lying in that hospital bed, I couldn't help but think how this was a new low. Alone, in pain, and not a single message or call from Ethan. Just when I thought things couldn't get any darker, a knock on the door heralded a visitor I never expected. Rita Turner? The man at the door was dressed in a suit, holding a briefcase, looking wildly out of place in the sterile hospital room. "Yeah, that's me. Who are you?" My voice was weak, tired from the pain and the endless cycle of disappointment. "I'm Michael Johnson, a notary. I have something important to discuss with you." His tone was formal, but there was something in his eyes that made me want to listen. I motioned for him to continue, curiosity piqued despite the situation. "It's about your great-uncle, Edward Turner. He passed away recently, and, well, you're his sole heir. Rita, he left you an inheritance." The words didn't make sense at first. "Are you sure you've got the right person? I haven't seen him for 15 years. Michael nodded. "Quite sure. He was a private man but always remembered you. Wanted to make sure you were taken care of." Lying in the hospital bed, feeling a mix of confusion and anticipation, I watched as the notary prepared to delve into the specifics of my great-uncle's will. He cleared his throat, opened his briefcase, and laid out the documents in front of him. "Rita, your great-uncle was a man of substantial wealth and taste. He left you quite the inheritance. We're not just talking about cash here, though there's plenty of that, $20 million to be exact," Michael began, his voice steady and matter-of-fact. I blinked, still trying to wrap my head around the numbers. $20 million? I echoed, feeling my voice crack. "That's right," he continued, unfazed by my shock. "But there's more. You're also inheriting shares in several large companies. These are not minor investments, we're talking significant stakes in some of the most stable and profitable firms out there." My mind raced, trying to comprehend the magnitude of what he was saying. Owning parts of companies I'd only heard about on the news seemed like a fantasy. "And there's the property," Michael went on, flipping through the papers. "An old, large house in one of the most prestigious areas. It's not just any house, Rita. It's a mansion with history, acres of land, and it's all yours now." I tried to imagine the house, the kind of place I'd only seen in movies. It was overwhelming, to say the least. "Don't forget about the antique car," he added with a slight smile, as if anticipating my reaction. "A classic, fully restored, and in mint condition. It's a collector's dream." I chuckled, the situation bordering on surreal. "An antique car, too? What am I going to do with that? I barely drive as it is." Michael's smile widened. "Well, it's yours to do with as you please. Maybe take it for a spin now and then? And then, there's the furniture and paintings inside the house, genuine antiques, some of them centuries old. Your great-uncle had an eye for the finer things in life." The room felt smaller, the air thicker, as I tried to digest everything he was saying. "So, I've inherited a fortune, a company, a mansion, an antique car, and a collection of art and furniture? That's unbelievable. It's all yours, Rita. Your great-uncle wanted to make sure you were well taken care of. It seems he saw something special in you." Special? I felt anything but, especially lying in a hospital bed after the worst few months of my life. Yet, here I was, a millionaire many times over, entrusted with a legacy I didn't know existed. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson. This is a lot to take in. I don't even know where to start," I admitted, feeling a mix of gratitude, disbelief, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. "We'll take it one step at a time," he assured me. "I'm here to help you through the entire process." As if on cue, my phone buzzed. Ethan's name flashed on the screen for the first time in days. Ignoring it, I turned back to Michael. "What happens now?" "We'll need to process some paperwork, but the inheritance is yours. Your life is about to change, Rita." Change it did. After the unexpected windfall landed in my lap, Ethan and his folks turned a new leaf, or so it seemed. Their daily hospital visits were like scenes from a sappy movie. Ethan, who couldn't be bothered to check on me before, now hovered constantly, adjusting my blanket with a concerned furrow on his brow. "How are you feeling today, love?" he'd ask, his voice dripping with a sweetness that didn't reach his eyes. His mother, Linda, was even more theatrical, if possible. Darling, I'm going to cook your favorite lasagna when you get back home. Just you wait, she said, her smile wide but not quite reaching her eyes. It was all too much, too sudden. Yet, I played along, smiling weakly, thanking them for their care. But suspicion gnawed at me, urging me to look beyond their acts. So, one day, I did just that. After their routine visit, I mustered the strength to slip out of my bed and follow them, my heart pounding with every step. Hiding behind a corner, I listened in as their true selves unfolded with no audience to perform for. Their laughter was the first thing I heard, harsh and jarring. Can you believe how easy it is? She's terribly stupid. She's eating right out of our hands, Ethan said, a chuckle escaping his lips. Linda was more calculating, her voice sharp as she laid out their plan. Make sure she makes a baby with you, Ethan. Once she does, she won't ever be able to leave us. Then, we'll have a real hold on her and her fortune. Their words, cruel and cold, didn't shock me. Disappointment filled me, yes, but surprise? Not in the slightest. They showed their true colors, and I was done painting over them in shades of denial. Silently, I made my way back to my hospital bed, their mocking words fueling a fire within me. They saw me as nothing more than a ticket to wealth, a means to secure their future. But I wasn't going to play their game. Not anymore. Lying in that bed, a plan began to take shape, clear and firm. I was going to turn the tables on Ethan and his conniving family. They underestimated me, saw me as weak, but I was about to show them just how wrong they were. Back at the house after being discharged, I felt like a stranger walking into what was supposed to be my home. Ethan and his parents were there, waiting, their faces painted with fake concern and eagerness. The atmosphere was thick, charged with unspoken tension and expectation. Ethan was the first to break the silence, his voice a blend of feigned sweetness and underlying greed. Babe, you're home. How are you feeling? We've been so worried about you. Ignoring the lump in my throat, I met his gaze squarely, seeing the man I once thought I knew. I'm feeling better, thanks. But we need to talk. All of us, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Linda, ever the actress, stepped forward, her hands clasped together as if in prayer. Of course, dear. We're here for you. Whatever you need. It was now or never. I took a deep breath and laid out my cards. I'm filing for divorce, Ethan. And before you ask, no, you won't see a dime of my inheritance. The room fell silent, the air sucked out of it as if by a vacuum. Ethan's face paled, his mask slipping to reveal the panic underneath. Divorce? But why? I thought we were happy? Happy? The word tasted bitter in my mouth. You, your mom, and your dad have made my life a living hell. You've treated me like a servant, not a wife. And now, suddenly, you're worried about me because I'm worth something to you? Ethan stammered, struggling to find the words, but Linda, always quick, jumped in. This is nonsense. We've always treated you like family. You're imagining things, dear. Rolling my eyes, I pulled out the prenuptial agreement from my bag, waving it in front of him. This is what saved me. You thought you could play me, but I'm not the naive girl you took me for. George, silent until now, finally spoke, his voice a mix of anger and defeat. You'll regret this. We're your family. No, you were never my family. A family doesn't treat one of their own like dirt and then turn sweet when money comes into the picture. I'm done here. Moving into my own place was the breath of fresh air I desperately needed. The apartment was small and cozy, a stark contrast to the life I'd left behind. It wasn't just a new living space, it was my declaration of independence, my fresh start. The phone call started almost immediately. Ethan, with his voice dripping with desperation, was the first to break the silence. Rita, please, you've got to come back. We can work this out, I know we can. His pleas fell on deaf ears. I was done, and no amount of begging could change that. Ethan, it's over. I'm not coming back. You need to accept that, I said, my voice firm, leaving no room for negotiation. Not long after, Linda chimed in, her tone a toxic mix of anger and guilt-tripping. Ungrateful. After everything we've done for you. You owe us, Rita. You're making a huge mistake. Owe you? For what, Linda? For making me feel like nothing more than a burden? No, I don't owe you anything. Goodbye. Hanging up on her felt like shedding a heavy weight, a final cut from the ties that bound me to a life of misery. The divorce was a relief, a clean break from a past that had threatened to consume me. Through friends, I heard about the fallout between Ethan and his parents. The irony wasn't lost on me. The very document they had insisted on, the prenuptial agreement, was now the source of their family strife. With my great-uncle's inheritance securely in my name, I found purpose in generosity. A significant portion went to charities that mattered to me, causes that would make a difference in the world. But it was the bookstore that became my passion project, a cozy haven for lovers of old and rare books. It was my way of reconnecting with the world, on my terms. My journey hadn't been easy, fraught with challenges and heartache, but standing in my bookstore, surrounded by the stories of countless others, I knew I had found my happy ending. It wasn't just about moving on from Ethan and his family's manipulation, it was about rediscovering who I was and what I loved. Here's to new beginnings. I toasted to myself one quiet evening after closing up shop. The road ahead was uncertain, but it was mine to travel, filled with possibilities and the promise of newfound happiness.